Following years of developmental work and countless hours in the simulator, Dave accomplished the first flight of the YF-22A on September 29, 1990. During the YF-22 Dimbow, he amassed 25 sorties and 35 hours in the prototype with emphasis on structural loads. He played a key role in the aerial demonstration, which helped lead to the contract win. Upon the retirement of Mr. Hal Farley, Dave Ferguson became the Director of Flight Operations for the Lockheed Advanced Development Company on July 1st, 1991. In this position, he oversaw executive air transportation flight operations until they were moved to Bethesda, Maryland in 1992. In his tenure, he oversaw numerous test programs to include the F-117, U-2, ER-2, Tier 3-, A-4AR, and Big Safari C-130s. Additionally, from 1994 to 1997, he served as the Director of Flight Test and Operations, overseeing not only flying, but flight test engineering and data analysis. In a flying career spanning 31 years, he accumulated roughly 6,500 hours in over 60 types of aircraft. Some of these aircraft still remain classified. As a result of his combat and flight test accomplishments, he holds the nation's Legion of Merit with 1 Oak Leaf Cluster, the Distinguished Flying Cross with 1 Oak Leaf Cluster, and the Air Medal with 7 Oak Leaf Clusters. The Society of Experimental Test Pilots has twice selected him to receive its highest honor, the Ivan C. Kinchlow Award, for flight tests of the F-117A in 1983 and the YF-22A in 1991. In September 1998, he was inducted by the City of Lancaster into the Aerospace Walk of Honor. Ferg married the former Janet Freed in June of 1964. They have 2 daughters, Terry Dowling of Berkeley, California, and Bonnie Ferguson, a professor at Kent University in Canterbury, England. He has 1 grandson, Kian Dowling, born in August 1992. He is a member of the Red River Valley Fighter Pilots Association, a fellow and past president of the Society of Experimental Test Pilots. Ladies and gentlemen, I present Mr. David L. Ferguson, an aviator reaching beyond the limits toward new horizons.
That was a great video. I don't know if I can add anything else, except I'd like to talk about Dave the man and not just Dave the pilot, because Dave was a really great guy. He had 3 really big loves in his life. Jan, as you can see from the video, his Corvettes and his airplanes. And I first really got to know Dave when he replaced me on the Red Hats in 1972. We were stationed in Misawa together, but he flew those other airplanes. And but the Red Hats were a really special group of individuals, and we'll talk a little bit more about them. But Jan never knew quite what he did. And I think Jan has learned more in the last year or so about what he did than she ever knew before. Just an example of that is that when, as Red Hats, we used to go off to strange places in the world. Nobody knew we were there, and Dave was in one of those strange places, and coming from a very religious family, one of his cousins was a missionary there, and nobody was supposed to know that Dave was there, except the cousin let Dave's mom know that he just saw Dave in this place. caused a minor security incident, but Dave did things that I can't even tell you about today, and really exceptional, very brave things that he did. He was so soft-spoken, so humble that he would never tell anybody, even until his last days. But while he was a Red Hat, he had a 1965 Corvette, and he wanted to work on that Corvette, and we'd go to work on Monday, and we wouldn't return back to Edwards until Thursday night. So he came up with this idea that he would start working on his Corvette. And we had 17 very capable sergeants working for us, hydraulics, avionics, all types of guys. And they said, "Oh, that looks like, that's really interesting. Can we help you?" And I think Dave ended up with about 17 mentors. And I'd like to introduce Ed Hoffman, Troy Piles. They're also Corvette restorers. Dave at one time owned 22 Corvettes, and I don't know how many Grand National champions he had. A lot. So that was his other love. And his third love was airplanes. And he was an exceptional pilot. I'll tell you one time that I recall, and it was at a place we won't talk about, but he was taking off, and he'd just broken ground. The afterburner failed. It wasn't going to take off without the afterburner, except he was already airborne. So he just kind of put it down on the ground, kept going straight ahead, ran out of runway, starting to run out of lake bed, just kind of made a little slow turn around. Hal's here with his wife, Ellen. Hal was the first guy to fly the F-117. And a great guy, and he was the guy that really took the airplane into operational. I just kind of sat there and watched. Tom Morgenfeld, also on the F-117, the F-22, former chief test pilot for Lockheed, and now the chairman of the National Test Pilot School Board of Directors, and his wife, Norma. Great test pilots and fans of Ferg. And Kent Burns, vice president of Lockheed Martin, and his son. These guys can tell you more about what Ferg did than that film can possibly tell you. But Ferg was a guy that you just had to know. You could see in the pictures that wonderful smile that he had, and he was just a guy that you loved to be around. You had to admire his flying skills. You had to admire his love of life and his love of family. So Jan, would you please come up? On behalf of the Nevada Aerospace Hall of Fame, we want to formally induct Dave into the Hall of Fame and present you with this plaque. And his plaque is here and will be there on the wall of the Hall of Fame forever.
Thank you forever.
You're welcome. Love you.
Always friends.
Next on the agenda is Bill Park and Pete Merlin. Would you start off?